Hey everybody, this is the IT trainer Tim. Hope you guys are doing well. Hey, you've reached part 10 of our cloud series. We have a couple things to discuss here in part 10, and then we're going to move into a demo. This will be our first demonstration, and I'm going to take you into the Microsoft Azure portal. And we're going to take a look around as I now begin to start creating things in the cloud so you can put all these pieces together. You know, guys, there were 9 parts before this one. If you just stumbled upon this video, I highly recommend you go back and watch part 1 through 9, where I really dive into what a cloud is, the aspects of a cloud, characteristics of a cloud, types of cloud infrastructures and types of deployments into the cloud and so forth. And now we're going to get into, maybe 2, 3, 4 videos of demonstrations, trying to bring all of this knowledge together. Guys, if you would do me a big favor and subscribe to the channel so you know when all of these new parts are going to be coming out. I'm going to be doing a Security Plus course right after this one as well. So you'll know when I release all of the pieces of that. Also, please leave me a comment. Or if you have questions regarding the content, please leave it down in the comment section and I will respond. Of course, like the video. Guys, this really helps to get the videos out there on the internet so a lot of people can see them. I don't put advertisements on my videos. I'm not doing this for money, as I've said in a bunch of my previous videos. So help me spread this information to as many people as possible. Share the video with the people that your contacts and so forth. That would be awesome. All right, so part 10. We're going to circle back now and talk about cost and ownership a little bit more. You know, in part 9, we wrapped up with this particular slide where we were talking about other service model types: function as a service, storage as a service, information as a service, and security as a service. And of course, before that, we talked about software as a service and platform as a service, all these different services that we can implement within the cloud and what they are. Now we really want to talk about the cost and ownership of the various services that we can deploy in the cloud. In particular, we're going to focus on infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. And we're going to be talking about, in essence, the type of costs associated with it, who owns the actual hardware or the software, right? Who's in charge of what, and so forth. So cost and ownership is what we're discussing here. So if you guys remember, infrastructure as a service was a cloud service type where we are deploying in a virtual environment what we call compute. And compute would be anything that has computing as a part of it. For instance, hosting an application in a container, or setting up a virtual server, a virtual machine in the cloud, even hosting some type of function, or networks or storage. All of this falls under compute. So infrastructure as a service. Let's talk about it in terms of costs. CapEx versus operational expenses, or OpEx. CapEx and OpEx. So in an infrastructure as a service, and by the way, this is coming from, or this discussion is about the customer's perspective, meaning your perspective, not the cloud service provider, but you. In an infrastructure as a service environment, there are no CapEx costs for the infrastructure as a service. There are none. Why are there none? Because you're not buying any hardware. You're not renting a physical data center, right? You're not buying anything associated with hardware or software. So there is no capital expenditure on the customer side of things. Now, there is operational expenses, right? Operational expenses. The customer is paying for the services that are actually going to be used or consumed. Meaning, if I put a virtual machine out there in the cloud, which you're going to see me do in upcoming videos, I'm going to start doing demos now. When I put that virtual machine out there in the cloud and people start connecting to it, then I start paying for it. Much like I said in part 1 and part 2 of this, when we were talking about, or I mentioned, the electric bill or a utility bill, right? You turn the lights on in your flat, in your house, in your apartment, and you're paying for the electricity while that light is on. Now, when you leave your house and you turn all the electric off, meaning you turn the light switches off everywhere, you're not paying for those lights because there's no electricity illuminating the light bulbs, right? You're only paying for what you're using. You're paying for what you're consuming. The same thing is true for IaaS. If you're hosting a piece of software in a container, meaning an application in a container, you're not paying for that application until somebody accesses it. If you're hosting a function in a serverless computing environment, well, guess what? You're not paying for that function until the processing of that function takes place. So there are no CapEx costs, and the customer is only paying for the services that are consumed. It's that easy. Right now, don't forget here, guys, you're also going to be paying salaries for people that you've hired to manage your cloud infrastructure, right? So there's some costs associated with that. But the point is, there's no capital expenses when it comes to IaaS or, frankly, platform as a service or, frankly, software as a service. And this is the big reason why a lot of organizations will venture into the cloud space, because gone are the days of buying very expensive hardware. I don't know if you guys have priced hardware. It's, what is it? It's August 2023. I don't know when you're going to be viewing this video, but as of August 2023, man, hardware is expensive. And not only that, it's difficult to get in a lot of ways. You know, you're not going to call a hardware vendor and have something delivered overnight unless it's something small. But if you need to purchase 5, 10, 15, 20 physical servers, it's going to cost a boatload of money, and it's going to take some time to get it. Well, we don't worry about that with infrastructure as a service. Remember what platform as a service is. A little bit of a review. Platform as a service is when the provider, the cloud service provider, sets up a dev environment for you to use, right? A development environment for you to use. So your organization can immediately go to work developing applications. You don't have to have the servers. You don't build virtual machines. You're not installing your dev tools, compilers, programmatic code of any kind. No, they're doing all that for you, and you pay them monthly for that. But here's the cool thing. Your people, your developers don't have to worry about that infrastructure. They go to work. And that's what we want them to do. We don't need them to worry about the systems they're using. Here's your system, go to work, develop the applications. So they can bring these applications to what we say, or what we call market, much quicker than in a traditional dev environment where you're actually managing the physical machines where the dev environment is, or even virtual machines. If you're virtualizing in-house, you still have to manage those. You got to manage the physical hardware where the virtual machines live in-house. So the customer's still in the cloud environment for a platform as a service cloud. The customer is paying the operational expenses only, right? If no one is currently connected to that dev environment doing any development at all, no one's paying for anything. Your people come to work in the morning and they get into the dev environment in the Amazon or the Microsoft or IBM cloud, and they start doing their thing. Then we're being billed for the services consumed in that platform as a service. On the software as a service side, remember what that is. That is a completed application. We have a fully functioning, vetted, quality assured, tested application, a complete entity. And we're going to upload that into the cloud, and that's going to be hosted for us by the cloud service provider. They're going to host that completed software. They're going to maintain said software. They're going to support the software. If it is software that people are paying monthly to access, they're going to manage the billing. They, of course, are going to take their piece out of that monthly billing or yearly billing, and then you're going to get the rest, right? They're managing it all. It is completely hands-off after you have that piece of software. So, of course, there are no capital expenses. You're not dealing with hardware at all. You're not even building virtual machines. So the customer is going to pay OPEX, operational expenses, when there's a subscription. If you host that application and currently no one is subscribed to it, no one's using it, you're not going to be paying for it. But let's hope that's not the case. Let's hope that lots of people begin using your app and they're paying $16.99 a month. Well, of course, Amazon or Microsoft, they're going to take their little fee for hosting it, for supporting it, for maintaining it, for collecting your revenue off that application. They're going to take their little $2-3, whatever it is, and then they're going to be issuing the rest of that money on a monthly or annually basis, right? So cost and ownership, man, this is very, very intriguing and worthwhile for someone to really delve into. There are no capital expenses up front. Now, when we talk about an on-premise data center, do we need an on-premise data center? Well, you may very well have an on-premise data center because, you've migrated into the cloud slowly or whatever. But when we're talking about customer ownership, again, that's you, the customer. In an on-premise data center, you own all the equipment. You paid for all the equipment. That was a capital expense. You might have 2.5, 2.6, 2.9, 3 million, 5 million invested in a data center somewhere. You own it all. In IaaS, you don't own it. The customer is only responsible for the purchase, the installation, configuration, and management of their virtual environment, right? Their operating systems, any middleware applications, any software licensing, and so forth. That's all you're responsible for. You're not responsible for Amazon's $15 million data center in, Vienna, Virginia that they just opened up. No, you're only responsible for whatever you built in the cloud, right? With platform as a service, the customer is responsible for only one thing, developing your applications. That's it. You're not even responsible for the virtual machines, the operating systems, the middleware, the applications running on those virtual machines, any other software. No, you're not responsible for any of that, and you don't pay for any of that. Only thing you do is develop your apps. And in software as a service, the customer is just taking that piece of software and giving it to the provider and let them host it for them. They're not responsible for maintaining it, managing it, collecting funds from the monthly subscriptions or annual subscriptions. They're not responsible for billing the customers. If a customer has a tech support question, they don't come to you. They go to the cloud service provider, right? You're not responsible for any of that. So in terms of cloud provider ownership, an on-premise data center, there is no ownership. The cloud provider doesn't own anything in your on-premise data center. The provider does, in fact, with IaaS and PaaS and SaaS or SaaS and PaaS and IaaS, however you want to say it, the provider owns all of the infrastructure. The provider is responsible for making sure it's always available, highly available to the customer. Right? They're responsible in a platform as a service environment for the operating system, the virtual machine, the network, the services, all of your dev tools that you use, whether it's Python, C#, XML, whatever you're developing in, dynamic HTML. They're responsible for giving you all of that. You tell the provider what you need so my developers can go to work. They provide all of that. The only thing you do is make sure your developers go to work. In a software as a service environment, the cloud provider does not own the application. Okay, they don't own the application, do they? They don't own the software. No, they're just responsible for provisioning that software. What does that mean? Installing that software on a server to make it available over the internet to your customers. That's it. Right? They're responsible for that. And of course, as we know, maintaining it and managing it and tech support for it and billing, collecting bills, all of that stuff, they're responsible for that. So if you really spend a couple minutes and really think about, from a cost perspective, the benefit of being in a cloud. There are some real cost savings out here that customers are going to see immediately. So this is the shared responsibilities matrix that you always see in cloud courses, comparing on-site to IaaS, to platform as a service, to software as a service. Anything in blue is managed by you, the customer, if you will. Anything in pink is managed by the cloud service provider. So if you have an on-site data center, you are 100% responsible for apps and data, your runtime, your operating systems, your physical servers, virtual servers, storage, networking, router switches, firewalls, blah, blah, blah. You're responsible for it all. If I move into the cloud and I decide to go infrastructure as a service, then you're responsible for your applications, data runtime, middleware, and operating systems running on your guest machines only. The cloud service provider is responsible for their physical servers running virtualization. They're responsible for the physical storage area networks, network attached storage devices, even direct attached storage. They're responsible for the routing, the switches, the firewalls, all that physical stuff. You're just responsible for whatever's virtual. In a platform as a service dev environment, the only thing you're responsible for is any applications that you're building and your data. The apps that you're deving and the data caused by that development process, that's your only responsibility. Everything below it, including the virtual servers, are the responsibility of the provider. So the virtual servers, the physical servers, the networking and storage, all of that is on the provider. And software as a service, you have no responsibility except starting off with the application. You've got to have a completed application, so you do have that responsibility. But you're going to give that to the cloud service provider, and you're done. Send me my money. Right? They're going to be responsible for hosting it, managing the data, the runtime, the middleware, the OS, the internet connection, and of course the virtualization processes and all the physical processes. You literally are hands off completely of software as a service. You are hands off completely, except you want to check your bank account to make sure that Amazon or Microsoft has paid you and how many subscriptions you actually sold. So there are, maybe you want to say, a little bit of management, management responsibility there, just to make sure you're being given the appropriate amount of revenue, if you will, from the proper sales of your application. So, you know what, guys? We've been talking here 10 different parts to this video series. And we've been talking, I've been going over slides. I want to quickly get into, and just spend a couple minutes here, I want to get into the Azure infrastructure. Just wanted to show you what a cloud portal actually looks like. The next video, part 11, I'm going to demo this Azure portal and show you around and show you kind of what it's made up of, what you can do with it and so forth, where you can find information about your subscriptions and all of that kind of stuff. And then most likely so that'll be part 11, and then the next one I'll do, part 12, is I will start to build something. I will build infrastructure as a service, and we will go into virtual machines, or we'll go into container applications and so forth. We'll build some resources in the cloud so you can actually see what it looks like when you actually do something in the cloud. So what you're looking at is portal.azure.com. This is the home page. So I will see you for part 11. And in part 11, we're going to dive into this a lot deeper. Hey guys, don't forget, please like the video. Please share the video with all of your friends. Right? And subscribe, because you need to know when these parts are coming out, especially if you're going to go get certified, maybe the Cloud Plus certification that CompTIA offers. And as I've said in previous parts, At the very end of this cloud series, which is probably another 5 to 10 parts away, I'm going to be making available a Cloud Plus study guide that literally, when I say thousands of people, I mean thousands of people have used and gone out and passed their Cloud Plus exam. But you guys are going to have to get involved and subscribe so I can get you that study guide. So I highly encourage you to subscribe and also to like the videos and share them and all that stuff you hear YouTube content creators talking about all the time. The difference is I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to spread information as far and wide on the internet as I can get it. You guys have an awesome afternoon or evening wherever you are in this beautiful world, and I'll see you back here for part 11. All right, my friends. Talk to you soon.